Bradley Van Zyl.
Good evening. My name is Bradley Van Zyl. I've lived in Jefferson, New York since 1957. I own approximately 200 acres of farmland there. There's a pipeline presently going through my land, and some of my best hay land is where the pipeline is. They took scrubland and they turned it into good, plowable, and usable land. There's been talk about cutting trees down in pipelines. At the turn of the 19th to 20th century, New York State had less than 10% trees. Now we're over 50%. I believe this pipeline would create a lot of good jobs, especially for us in this area. When you've worked 5 months out of the last 13, you want this job, this pipeline. And 4 months of that's been in Westchester. So I urge you to pass 401. Thank you.
Dean Tambury. And I'll call on Rima Loeb, Abram Loeb, and Charlie Pierce.
Good evening. I'm a proud member. My name is Dean Tambury. I'm a proud member of Labor's Local 17. I have seen many of our members have to leave and work on pipelines throughout this country. The United States is becoming more energy independent. New York needs to be a partner in this process. It is much more efficient. No one in here has mentioned yet the fuel oil that we burn and the transportation by trucks, ships, and the impact of the environment on the transportation of those, spills, etc. We need fuel. Gas is more efficient and cleaner for the environment. Yes, this brings jobs, much needed jobs to the area where people have to travel out to support their families and the taxes of the area. The entire country is moving forward. I hope New York State is part of the economic engine that will create even more jobs for our members, good paying jobs with benefits. I've watched these pipelines be built. They're very careful throughout the wetlands and the living creatures in the areas that they're disturbing to install the pipeline. I hope the DEC approves this pipeline for the future of clean energy and hope the United States becomes more energy efficient as soon as possible for jobs for our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Stolzer. Michael Stolzer. Michael's gone. Ron Bishop.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. To introduce myself, I'm Ron Bishop. I live in the town of Middlefield. I am a construction professional, a commercial industrial electrician. For full disclosure, I should also mention that my twin brother is a senior executive for a pipeline company. I also teach chemistry and biochemistry at SUNY Oneonta. You might have heard of it. Thanks, my students don't always get that. Now, I've been following oil and gas industries for a while. I was asked, because of my dual background in the trades and heavy construction and also in science, to do technology assessment and those kinds of things for a number of friends around here in other states. And one of the greatest concerns I have about this particular project is the actual history of the companies who will be doing the project. I do not by any means want to show any disrespect for the people who run the track hose, the backhoes, and the various pieces of equipment that would be used in the project if you happen to be local. I understand the care you have for your neighbors and your land, but you're not running the job. It would be hard to find a pair of companies beyond Williams and Cabot who has actually done a worse job of showing willing compliance to state regulations. I'll be submitting more detailed comments a little bit later. And I'm aware that New York has a style, your DEC has a style of setting a high bar and then trying to guide companies into compliance if they don't meet that standard. I can think of only one surefire way that New York State's DEC could actually guide Cabot and Williams into compliance. And that is to guide them across the state line. And don't get that started here, not with them. Thank you for the opportunity.
Clark Road. Okay. Kathy Schimberg.
Hi, thank you for being here and listening to us. I'm Kathy Schimberg. I live in Mount Vision, which is in Otsego County. The pipeline will not affect my land directly, but air and water do not know boundaries necessarily that mankind has set. I haven't prepared anything in particular tonight. I will submit something in writing before the deadline. But I just want to emphasize all the caveats that people have spoken about the environmental impacts and concerns, and reinforce the thought that there are two aspects to this, and one is the construction, and the other is what happens after the pipelines are in the ground. We have been told, we have read that it's certain that there will be leaks, can be explosions, can be a lot of harm, and this will go on for a long time, and what happens after the pipelines deteriorate. So I'm also very concerned about the water, everything everybody has said so far, and I hope you will see fit to deny the 401 permit, at least at this point. Thank you.
Mark Buncher. I think it's M-U-C-H-E-R. No. Mike Lyons. Mike here. Joseph Brill. Rima Loeb.
Hi, I'm a landowner in Afton, and the pipeline will be crossing that community. So I guess you could say I have a special concern, but I have a general concern too. It is not the job of the DEC to create jobs for people. There are other agencies that do that, and you do a good job on what you do. Please continue to defend the environment, because that's where we all live. That's not something way out there. We live in the environment. The idea of jobs, solar, wind, we could have all the jobs that the state could ever want if we put pressure on our officials. Get moving on this. We do subsidize the gas and oil industry already. Let's cut that out, especially on a federal level. All right, here there are concerns. There are concerns about air quality. Michelle Bamberger, who is a veterinarian, has studied this for years, says that pipelines and compressor stations are just as damaging to human health and animal health as the actual drilling. Her book's coming out this weekend. Now, water quality, getting down to what you folks really are about here and what you can think about. Our floods, 2006, Afton was drenched. We were flooded out. I think someone mentioned earlier about the hole in I-88. 2 truck drivers were killed, one going one direction, the other going the other, because all of a sudden everything collapsed. You're telling me that a pipeline would not collapse in similar situation, so especially when you take the trees away and you're on a hillside or at the bottom of the hillside and you've taken those trees? You know, It's nightmarish to think of the various scenarios that could take place here. 2006 wasn't the only 100-year flood. I think it was 2012. We had another big one. Afton was flooded again. Please think about this. Think about what you're doing. Think about the children who are going to have to live with this recurring nightmare. Thank you.
Michael Stelter.
Hi, my name's Michael Stolzer. I live in the town of Oneonta. Thank you. So much of the concerns are centered around the effective completion of the work that all of these guys do, and I believe every single one of them when they say they do a really good job and they're really concerned. I don't know how to reconcile that, though, with the horrible records that these companies have. You know, you've heard a lot about Williams Cabot in Pennsylvania. Over a four-year period, while it was only the 10th largest drilling company in town, was the #1 violator. Williams, in a 3-year period, paid nearly $2 billion to FERC and the state of California for manipulating natural gas markets, intentionally manipulating natural gas prices, and violating the Unfair Competition Act by illegally pricing power and natural gas. The FEIS is contingent upon these companies fulfilling their word. Now, given the record, I don't know how anyone can ever expect them to keep their word. On another note, in 2006, I stood in my backyard, and within 15 minutes, water was up to my knees. My neighbor had just put in a steel bridge across the stream, and I was standing there with him and heard an explosive sound. Later to find out it was that steel bridge, I-beams, girders across the stream, 100 yards downstream, bent in the shape of a horseshoe. Just saying. Thank you.
Abram Loeb.
Hello, my name is Abram Loeb, and I implore you to deny this permit for the application, the water quality application certification. You've just taken part, the agency just took part in a process of deciding with Governor Cuomo whether to allow high-volume hydrofracking in New York State. And of course, now we thank you for that decision to not allow it. Thank Governor Cuomo for his decision to not allow it. But Pennsylvania is being destroyed right now. And what you're proposing with this pipeline is allowing this gas, this radioactive, fracked, poisonous gas, to be piped through our state to affect our communities, the air quality, the water quality. How long before this gas runs out? And how many years into our future will this affect our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, on down? And where is this gas going? Who is it benefiting? It's going to be sold to the highest bidder, most likely imported to foreign countries. But there are some here that will rape their own Mother Earth for the almighty dollar god in the sky. Sickening. Sickening. Emotional? Yeah, it's emotional. If you see your family dying of cancer, my family's been blessed with health, thank you. But if you see your family dying of cancer, your loved ones dying of cancer, that'll be emotional. When you see families that have been forced to move because their water is poisoned, it's emotional. I know some of them. I know some of them that are stuck living with that situation. If fracking is not safe for New York, it's not safe for Pennsylvania, or Colorado, or Arkansas, or Texas, or North Dakota. It's not safe. Guess what, though? With solar, with wind power, with renewables, there's no explosions. There's no, we had a spill. No. And there's plenty of jobs for all you union guys. I want to see you have jobs. When I'm set up in the mall in Oneonta selling my crafts, I want you to come in and shop with me. Sure, I'm a local business, not a corporation. So, of course I want to see jobs, but let them be long-term, sustainable jobs. But of course your job here is to decide our water, our air quality, our environment. And so that's your biggest concern. Thank you. Stop the pipeline.
Charlie Pierce. And I'll call down Keith Shue, Stanley Fox, Norm Farrell, Kathy McNulty, Julie Huntsman.
Thank you for having these three programs. I'm Charlie Pierce from Otsego. I'm a veteran from the 1960s. I'm also a graduate from this institution, an educator. I've also been a proud member of 7 unions. Whenever there has been an opportunity, I've always joined. Unions have done a great deal for the middle class in the past. But in my opinion, the unions should be pressing Congress to fix the roads and bridges. DOT predicted the crash of, I think it's 335W over the Mississippi River. Originally, they were denied money to like $10 million to fix the bridge, and it cost nearly $1 billion. Also, on the New York Thruway by Amsterdam, the bridges fell into the water, people died. It caused a great deal of concern. DOT predicted that. They also predicted the earlier mentioned I-88 washout of the road. I think the unions should be pressing Congress to get off their duffs and appropriate the money for that. Excuse me. I oppose the constitutional pipeline and fracking for many reasons, which other people have stated. Carcinogens are a cause of cancer, and like cyanide, it doesn't take much to do its damage. At least 4 of us in Otsego who live next to cornfields that are constantly sprayed with Roundup now have cancer. I can't believe that anyone would allow more cancer to be caused. You know, I've had enough of it. They say that, I have read in several places, that there are enough pipelines already. The pipelines that exist already have the capacity to supply New England. Pipelines are going to go to a port in Boston, 3 ports in Rhode Island, and 1 in Nova Scotia. They have no intentions and plus they plan to charge the people, the residents who heat their homes. They're going to back charge that to them, and while all the gas. Another one, a 3rd line.
Your time's up, sir.
Already?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith Shue.
Thank you. My name is Keith Shue. I live in Cherry Valley in Otsego County. I've been a technical advisor for various organizations, including Otsego 2000. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the engineering of how water crossings occur. Some other folks have talked about the ecological aspects of it, and I want to give credit to the excellent comments of Ms. Dunlap relating to that. However, from an engineering standpoint, I think it's important to understand what is proposed and why what is proposed won't work. I'm going to start with reading something from a great scoping comments that DEC actually put together back in November of 2012. It says, for streams and wetlands, the preferred method for crossing is horizontal directional drilling because it has the advantages of minimizing land disturbance, avoiding the need for dewatering of the stream, leaving the immediate stream bed and banks intact, and reducing erosion, sedimentation, and project-induced watercourse instabilities. So what does that mean? It means basically when you're building a pipeline, you start much further out from the water's edge, much further back, and you gradually drill horizontally to where you're below the surface of the stream bed, much further down, and then you come up gradually on the other side. This lets you protect not only the watercourse, but the littoral zone, wetlands nearby, as well as some adjacent uplands. So the question becomes, how many times has Constitution Pipeline actually proposed to do this? Or have they listened to DEC on this matter at all? The answer is they've listened to exactly 0 times. In their most recent final environmental impact statement, they're proposing no horizontal directional drilling. What they're proposing instead in only 3 places, or 4 places I should say, is something called direct pipe. That's a type of installation where it's a much shorter horizontal drilling. You're not protecting the same amount of the land and the waters, and you're not buried as far down below the surface. So basically, I know I'm running out of time here, but essentially, shallow trenching is not the way to go. It's the most damaging way of doing this. That's what's being proposed for 277, almost 277, perhaps all of them, of these crossings. That's a deep concern, and for that reason, I think the bottom line is that you have not been listened, you've not been Constitution Pipeline has not listened to your advice. You have every reason to turn down this application and deny the water quality permit. Thank you very much. And also, I ask that an adjudicatory hearing be established as well. Thank you very much.
Stanley Fox. Is Stanley Fox here? Norm Farrell.
Mr. Tomasik, thank you for coming to Oneonta tonight. The Constitution Pipeline poses a potentially catastrophic risk that the DEC's administrative regulatory process must not overlook. The permitting process for a project like this one is at its heart a cost-benefit analysis which compares the potential harm of the project against the potential benefits. And normally the DEC could be confident that even if it is wrong in its assessment, if, for example, it permits a pipeline that causes extensive damage to the local community, the local ecology, and human health, and for which the benefits turn out to be overstated or exported to foreign countries, you can take some solace in knowing that even if you are wrong, the costs of being wrong are manageable and that they are limited, local, and finite. However, there is a rare type of situation for which a cost-benefit analysis does not work. If instead of a risk of harm, there is a risk of systemic ruin, if instead of being finite, the cost on the cost-benefit side of the equation is potentially infinite, then there can be no cost-benefit analysis. We know that methane is an extremely powerful greenhouse gas in the short term, more than 80 times as potent as CO2 over a 20-year horizon. We know from the work of Robert Howarth and Tony Ingraffia and others that methane emissions from the oil and gas sector are far higher than anyone previously thought. Howarth points out that we cannot discount the catastrophic risk of a near-term climate tipping point due to emissions of methane from the oil and gas sector. Given this assessment, caution requires denial of this permit. We cannot continue to build the infrastructure of fossil fuel addiction in the face of systemic global risk and given the existence of viable alternatives. Some will argue that we should not base a decision on admitted uncertainty. However, in a complex system, as uncertainty increases, so does risk. So those who point to uncertainty actually argue in favor of greater caution, whether they know it or not. A recent paper on the subject of caution and risk by Nassim Taleb and others, published by the New York University School of Engineering, makes this important and relevant point. When there is a risk of ruin, obstructionism and policy inaction are important strategies impeding the rapid, headlong experimentation with global ruin by those with short-term, self-centered incentives and perspectives. Given the scale of the potential risks associated with this project, caution dictates that the DEC must deny the permit, or failing that, hold adjudicatory hearings on this issue. Thank you.
Kathy McNulty.
Hi, thank you for having the hearing. I'm going to talk about exactly where I live. I live in the Carrs Creek watershed, and I participated with my family in 2008. The plan was completed in 2012. We did stream surveys. One problem identified was severe flooding. Another problem was impervious soil underlying geological of the geology of glacial till and the soils derived from it, which have a very low infiltration rate, a high runoff potential, and that's exacerbated by steep slopes. Another risk to water quality was the improper dumping of industrial waste by a company you've heard spoken of this evening, Amphenol Corporation. There's 2 Superfund sites in our little watershed directly attributable to industrial waste dumped by Amphenol Corporation. The clear cutting of trees for the Constitution pipeline over steep slopes would increase the risk of flooding in this area, creating new paths for water runoff, eliminating the forest cover and impairing wetlands that buffer flooding and hold water, releasing it slowly, and would therefore be inconsistent with our plan to improve the water quality and reduce the risk of flooding in our particular area. Wetlands are environmentally sensitive habitats that play an integral part in supporting water quality, and in terms of water retention and erosion control and sediment retention are essential components to flood control, which we're very interested in. We had a huge flood in 2006, a huge flood, very damaging in 2011 also. Flooding is life-threatening in all places, but in the hamlet of Sydney Center with the added pollution, we have added health risk. In modeling during this particular study, the crossing site where Constitution Pipeline wants to cross Carrs Creek is exactly, almost exactly the point most likely to flood under all time spans. So it doesn't seem like a very good place to be putting this. I would like to point out that since this application has been made, there's been a big change in the regulatory environment when DEC has decided that high volume, high pressure hydrofracking is dangerous to the health of New Yorkers, also the health of the creatures who live in New York, and it has materially changed the situation, and so this application, you should start completely over. We have to do it completely differently because you have to take your own decision that it's unhealthy for people and creatures into consideration. And I would like to urge, I know this is not your purview. Thank you very much.
Julie Lumpkin.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having the hearing and extending the public comment. I want to thank Commissioner Martins and all you staff and Mr. Tomasic for being here. Thanks for your health, for your commitment to the health of our shared environment and the public's participation in the decision-making process. I serve on the town board of the town of Otsego and as co-coordinator of the statewide network Elected Officials to Protect New York. And on behalf of that group, I want to thank you for your recent decision, based on the recommendation of New York State's Health Commissioner Zucker, to ban high-volume fracking in New York State. I really can't imagine the process you've been through in this review, 6 years and 260,000 public comments. We thank you, elected officials to protect New York. So before you know the issue of whether or not to grant the necessary water quality permit to the Williams Company and their partners for the planned Constitution pipeline, if you did issue it, then I guess that would be tantamount to saying that you're very confident that the proposed activity would not violate our water quality standards, wouldn't harm our freshwater, wetlands, floodplains, creeks, streams. Again, given that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, many people have noted violations of the applicants, which should definitely give you pause. All this has been laid out in a very well-researched op-ed by Ms. Rachel Soper, and many people have referenced it. But even if the applicant's record was clean as a whistle, which it clearly is not, if the DC grants its permit, how is this consistent with your mission and with all that you acknowledge on your website about the reality of climate change and its steady exacerbation by our over-reliance of fossil fuels? Your website clearly states that this reliance is unsustainable. It would appear completely inconsistent with DEC's commitment with other state agencies to promote a cleaner and greener future for New York State, which includes growing jobs in the renewable energy sector. This means your department is not only practical, but it calls on you to be visionary, and you state your vision. So would a decision in favor of the applicant be in the best interest of our state? You acknowledge your simultaneous pursuit of environmental quality, public health, economic prosperity, and social well-being. Given all that you acknowledge about the hazards of high-volume fracking and its related infrastructure, like this pipeline and the associated compressor stations, and given that you know that the fossil fuel extraction and infrastructure is making climate change worse, and the poor track record of the applicants, and given that private property is to be taken by eminent domain so that gas can be exported to Canada, how would the laudable, difficult, multiple mission of the DEC be illustrated by granting this permit? It would not at all. As I said, your DEC is called upon to be practical and visionary. Please adhere to your knowledge, integrity, and vision for our state and deny this permit. Thank you.
William Wilson? Is William here?
Thank you for, oh, hold on one second. Thank you for holding these hearings. And thank you, pass along to your boss up the chain of command. I want to echo what she just said about we're very, very grateful that the DEC listened. We've been fighting this for a long, long time, a lot of people in this room. And so we're very happy about the ban. And we hope to see more of the same. And we're looking for a little help on this project. You know, so one thing I want to point out to you is that there's a whole lot of environmental impacts that have not been scoped or by this project that directly affect water quality. One is that this pipeline will carry fracked gas from northeast Pennsylvania, and inside the pipeline, and there are massive water impacts in Pennsylvania. Now, how does that relate to like 313 families with contaminated water in 6 counties? How does this affect New York water? Well, I'll tell you. I live in Binghamton, and I drink water that comes directly from the Susquehanna River, and I have 120 fracked wells upstream from me in Pennsylvania. Like another speaker recently said, you know, water doesn't follow geopolitical boundaries. This project is identical. You know, the DEC is bound to follow the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, and SEQRA demands that you consider reasonably connected projects. The Kinder Morgan, Tennessee Northeast Direct project, which people have already talked about tonight, is identical It should be considered identical to this project. It is this one and the same. They are connected. The environmental impacts for that pipeline project are not scoped in this draft document. The cumulative impacts to water quality for the loss of 430,000 trees, and I know you've got this narrow scope for this water permit, but the loss of life is tremendous from this project, a permanent loss of life, 430,000 trees. Each tree will support 10,000 living things, ants and aphids and beetles and nematodes and birds and frogs. And we're talking about 430,000 trees lost forever. The cumulative air impacts have water impacts. If we look at the cumulative air impacts for the Constitution Pipeline with the Kinder Morgan Northeast Direct, it amounts to about 2.5 million tons per year. This is a train 250 miles long. Thank you. Thank you. Please deny this permit.
Is Elizabeth here? Claude Crispell?
Hi, my name's Claude Crispell. I was a union laborer in Pennsylvania for 5 years, Scranton local. Moved to New York, 27 years. I have land in Pennsylvania. My brother and I signed in a pipeline agreement. It was about 4 years ago, 24-inch transportation line. They ended up going through his land, not mine, 4,700 feet of the land, up over the mountain, down over a steep hillside, 2,000 feet. The company surveyed the wetlands, and to avoid them, they went down over the steepest part of the mountain. They still had to go through 600 feet of wetland. But they surveyed the wetland, and they ribboned the wetland off. They needed access through the other property to get to the bottom of the steep part. So they ribboned all along that wetland, and I watched them do the pipeline. I'm retired now. They couldn't gas up or do anything around that wetland. And when I went there, they had it all silt fences from top to bottom, hay bales. They did a very, very good job of environmental. When they finished, they laid burlap down on the hillside. They put diversion ditches, they call them water bars, that divert the water into the woods. I hear about the hillsides washing out. We had no problem with that down in Pennsylvania. We talked to a lot of landowners. Across Bowman's Creek, one of the largest natural trout streams in the state, no problem at all. I didn't hear any problem from that. When they're finished, deer, turkey, grouse, love the pipeline. Everybody's fighting to hunt on the pipeline. My brother received $150,000 for that, paid his son's college off, put money aside for taxes for a long time. My nephew now owns the land with his other brother. He's been overseas 4 tours of duty, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait. Here's a picture of him and his son at the pipeline. Maybe his son won't have to go abroad to protect the interest of oil overseas if we get more natural gas in the United States. Cornell University paid for a 4-mile gas line to convert from dirty coal to natural gas. That's cleaning the atmosphere up.
Sorry, your time's up.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm for the pipeline. Pass it.
I'm from Johnstown, New York. My name is Bill Kitchen. That's Kitchen like the room, Bill like McKibben. Thank God for Bill McKibben. Of all our problems, Mother Nature and science keeps reminding us that climate change is at the top of the list. The single biggest obstacle to combating climate change is fracking. Not only because fracked gas, like all fossil fuels, greatly increases climate change, but also because fracking and its infrastructure is diverting all the money and resources we should be investing in the only real solution, an all-out World War II type effort to develop renewable energy. The recent decision to ban fracking in New York could mark a historic turning point. Certainly Dr. Zucker cemented his place in history when he bravely admitted he wouldn't want his family exposed to the hazards of fracking. The jury is still out, I believe, regarding DEC, Commissioner Martens, and Governor Cuomo. If they allowed the continued build-out of fracking infrastructure in New York State, then they in New York are just a bunch of hypocritical, selfish NIMBYs who only encourage an increase in fracking in other states at the same time they say it isn't safe for us here in New York. If Governor Cuomo, Commissioner Martens, and DEC pull back from fracking infrastructure build-out and lead an all-out push for renewable energy, it won't be possible for history to overstate how significant their leadership has been for all of us, here in New York, across the country, indeed around the world. I believe DEC will soon have everything it needs to deny the permits necessary for the unconstitutional pipeline to be built. I encourage you to deny those permits. Thank you.
Joan Turkey.
Thank you for being here and allowing us to speak. Again, I spoke last night in Binghamton. Constitution Pipeline EIS raises numerous questions about water quality and safety along the length of the pipeline and any other pipeline that might be co-located in the future. As trees are cut, removing the roots that protect the integrity of hillsides, we can expect long-term turbidity and sediment deposits in streams and creeks. Flooding, runoff, and washouts are so extensive in Delaware County that a proposal has been made to move part of the town of Sydney. Consider this article from the Oneonta Daily Star in February 1st of 2012. It documented the after effects of a relatively small tree cutting project at the Oneonta Airport, just a few miles from the pipeline route. The mayor of Oneonta, quote, apologized to several landowners who live near the Oneonta Municipal Airport who said their warnings about runoff from a clear-cutting project of surrounding surrounding trees went unheeded. The city is holding its outside engineering consulting firm accountable. The State Department of DEC called a halt to the project in December and asked for the city to come up with a short-term fix to the runoff problem as well as a long-term stormwater plan. This project, like the Constitution, was federally approved. Yet in January 2012, the DEC fined the city $56,000 after finding Clough Harbor's short-term runoff mitigation plan to be inadequate. The DEC faulted the project for creating sediment-laden runoff that impacted a tributary of Wilbur Lake, which is the city's major source of water. In Pennsylvania recently, the DEP announced a settlement with Tennessee Gas Pipeline for multiple violations of the Clean Streams Law during the construction of a natural gas pipeline in 2011 and 2012 through 4 counties in northeast and north central Pennsylvania. And it must be clarified who's responsible for the cost of stream cleanup as this inevitable contamination continues. Williams or the landowners who are forced to provide rights of way to Williams for the Constitution. We can't expect Constitution, to act in the best interests of our environment while this project is in construction. It's much easier for them to pay fines. So I ask that you protect our water quality, do not issue this water quality certificate, or hold adjudicatory hearings on the project. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was our last card for the night. I want to thank everyone for coming out here this evening. Have a safe trip home.
They walk us through it, we need anything, then they can send students up, get them out, great. If you were to ask me. Had a, we had it. We had the alarm come in, did not know where it was. We had the alarm come in, did not know, we had the alarm come in, did not know